Good morning and welcome, everyone. Today, I wanted to touch on the topic of going through a breakup. I know just how painful a breakup can be, especially when we feel like we are in a state of suffering because of it or we're really missing the person. And I just wanted to go over with you so you have a good understanding of why a breakup really hurts. So, the first thing I want to do is to illustrate a story of two clients who came into the office. And both of them were having very similar situations. We can call one of them Casey and one of them Jane. Now, both of them were around the same age, and they had both met their partners around the same time after attending a university, and they both, were together for about 10 years or so, and they had children, and there was a lot of fighting in both of their marriages, and things just weren't working out very well. And so Casey, on one hand, came in and was in extreme suffering. She was upset, she was crying, and she was just completely broken. Jane, on the other hand, came in and, she was experiencing a very similar situation with her husband, because remember, they're very similar in the way that they met and how long they've been together and the breakup. So Jane came in and she actually seemed to be pretty okay with the breakup. And what we noticed is that these two people had very completely different perceptions on the way they were perceiving the breakup. So, Casey, who was in extreme suffering, right, came in and was saying things like, I'm going to be alone forever. If maybe I took better care of myself, he wouldn't have left. I should have tried to be a better partner, be more spontaneous, so that I could really keep his interest. And she was telling herself these very painful stories. On the other hand, Jane, who seemed pretty okay, had a completely different outlook on the situation. So she came in and, she was saying things like, things weren't working out for quite some time now. I know it will be hard, but I know that I will be okay. And, I really want my kids to know that if something isn't working out, then they have permission to leave. And in the future, I know that I'll find happiness. And again, I wish that for my husband as well. So the way she was speaking about the breakup and perceiving the situation was vastly different than the way Casey was experiencing and perceiving hers, right? So what's really interesting to know is there are a couple key components to why a breakup hurts. There are two major ones. Well, let's say like three that I'm going to go over today. Number one is going to be the stories we tell ourselves around why the breakup happens. If we are telling all these painful narratives, such as I am not enough, I will be alone forever, I'm never going to find anybody else, these kind of stories are going to keep you in a state of suffering versus if you were trying to look at the bright side of things, which we will get into in just a few moments, okay? Number two is going to be the unmet needs in your relationship. Things like we had all this connection, we had fun, we had laughter. When these things go missing, right, because you're used to getting your needs met by someone else, it's like when they go missing, it's like a part of us kind of feels like it goes missing. It kind of creates like an identity crisis because our brain really latches on to these like ways of getting needs met, and it becomes like wired in as like our new norm, right? And then when it's gone, our brain is like, oh my gosh, we don't have our needs met, and it creates all this discomfort and unsafety and feelings of uncertainty, like what am I going to do, right? And so the third thing is going to be the traits that our subconscious mind was trying to identify as part of our sense of self. So our brain does this funny thing, right, where it really likes trait variety. And this is because it's survival oriented. So let's say, you know, you're really smart, and then you get with a partner and they're really strong. Well, our brain likes like trait variety because it thinks like, okay, if I'm this way and I have somebody who has all these other traits that I don't have, then we are more likely to survive, and it creates like this hole, right? Versus having somebody who is exactly like you in all kinds of ways, and there's nothing new really being added into you, right? So trait variety tends to be a big thing in how the subconscious mind attaches to people, and so that's just something that I really want you to understand. And so, what can we do about this? Well, number one, remember when we talked about those painful stories, right? The painful stories that we tell ourselves that causes this immense suffering. What I want you to do, if you're somebody who's going through this now, or maybe have in the past, or just want to be prepared for any future events that might pass by, God forbid, I don't want anyone to go through any breakups, but just so you know how to navigate things, right? Or even help a friend navigate something. So instead of looking at all these painful stories, right? And I know it's a little hard. You kind of have to push yourself, but like I want you to look at the flip side of things, because this is something we usually never do. So if you look at something and look at the flip side, like maybe you can ask yourself, what patterns did I not like about the other person in this relationship? And you can write down some of those things. And then maybe you might think, like, what good could possibly come out of this, right? What areas of my life are freed up now, and that I can focus more on now that I don't have this relationship? How is this potentially strengthening me, right? How would I like to look back on this breakup and see that and see how I showed up for myself? Like, what things can I do now, right? To really show up for myself and see that I survived and that I'm strong and I'm very proud of myself, right? Knowing what you know about this person and the way that they've been showing up, do you think that things would have worked out in the long term, like 5 or 10 years from now? What would that have looked like if things continued on the way they've been continuing on? What would the cost of that be? Like, how would you feel, right? And just think, like, what are the benefits of this? What are things that I can learn and move on with in my life? Like, what lessons did I learn here? And what can I do differently in my next relationship? Or what qualities and traits am I really going to be looking out for? Like, maybe this person wasn't very considerate of my needs, or wasn't really open to communicating with me, or not very emotionally available. And in the future, I want to make sure that I'm looking out for somebody of this nature, someone who's actually going to show up for me, right? So there's a lot of good takeaways that you can take in a different way to perceive your breakup, instead of just creating all this suffering. Because when you're telling yourself all these stories, these painful stories, that's when you stay stuck in suffering, and there's actually zero benefit to that. So if you're looking to feel better, looking to overcome this pain, I need you to jump on board with being able to see the flip side of things and being able to go in a different direction with all the stories that you are telling yourself. And then when we look in the lens of the unmet needs, right? The unmet needs, now that you're no longer with this person, maybe they met your need for emotional connection, right? Maybe they met your need for social connection or novelty because you guys explored a lot together, or you guys cooked dinner a lot together, or there was laughter between you guys, right? And they kind of filled your buckets there, right? Now that they're no longer there, you're not getting your needs met in this form, but that doesn't mean you can't get your needs met. So it's important for you to, number one, identify what these needs are that this person was meeting in your relationship, and number two, create strategies on how to meet these needs in other forms. You see, our brain is going to try to assume that these needs are doomed forever, which causes a lot of pain. But when you start trying to meet these needs in other forms, your brain can get certainty out of that and be like, oh, and start feeling better. Like, I have these needs being met. And so, an example of this is like, you're no longer having emotional connection. But can I reach out to a friend and have a deep conversation, or reach out to multiple friends, or have like a movie night with a friend and really connect with them on that level? If it's for humor, can I go to a comedy show? Can I still bring these things into my life? The answer is always going to be yes, okay? You can always meet these needs in other forms. It's not directly like based on the other person meeting them for you. And it will feel uncomfortable at first. I'm not saying that. And our brain tends to reject things that aren't familiar. But once you push yourself to engage in meeting your own needs for just a little while, your brain will jump on board and start accepting it. So that is my recommendation for you, is just to be aware your brain will reject it because it's not familiar, and our brain equates familiarity with safety. But after doing this for like a week or so, you'll notice your brain jump on board and you will feel more comfortable and safe meeting your own needs. And then again, the traits, you know, just writing out the traits that maybe you did appreciate in this person, and that your subconscious mind really like felt connected to, and just keeping that as like a little list of like things that maybe you might look for in somebody else, things that you appreciate. Hey, maybe I didn't appreciate everything about this person, but if there are a couple traits or characteristics about this person that I did appreciate or did like or felt really attracted to, then I can write them down. I can make sure that maybe it's something that I'm looking out for in future connections. And I can also see if there's a way that I can start being or introducing more of that trait in my own life. So a lot of the times our brain is seeking out this trait variety, and when we're really intrigued by it in somebody else, like if we take a moment and say like, you're like a really girly girl, right? And you like the trait that your partner is very assertive, and maybe you've always been like a people pleaser or really shy and quiet. You might find that you're really attracted to that kind of trait or quality, and you're like, oh, they're really assertive, right? Or they're really like, you know, they set boundaries, and I love that about them. This usually is because you're not already doing that. And if you can start incorporating more of that in yourself intentionally, this will make you so much happier. Your brain will feel fulfilled and happy. And you'll just feel like you're not going to look at other people and be like, oh, they have all these traits or qualities and I don't, right? Because you can really bring any traits and qualities into your life with integration, you know, intentional integration, and not feel like, oh, they have that, I don't, right? You can bring it into your life, you can practice it, you can be intentional. So I hope that all makes sense for everyone, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. God bless.